Is my video flipped, or is that just my viewing of my own video?
What's wrong?
I mean, how would we know if your video's flipped?
Well, okay, so
Neil?
does this guitar back here look like a righty or a lefty guitar?
Honestly, I can't see it.
Yeah, I can't see it. I wouldn't worry about it. It's because where there's four of us, it's narrow.
It looks
Yeah.
very normal to me anyway.
I wouldn't worry about it.
I wouldn't worry about it. Yeah, you look great, dude.
You look great, dude.
You look great.
Right there's the intro. You look great, dude.
Well, there we go. There's our intro.
All sorted.
Done.
Nice.
All right. Let me just bring in Mackie here.
So what we're going to do is, Nate, are you going to do the intro this week?
I'll do the intro this week.
Yeah. How many takes today?
Just one. Just one, Just one.
Is this like an ongoing thing?
Lately it has been.
Usually Nate is very good, but there was 1 month. I mean...
Well, you would think it would be easy to do, just read off, but no, it's not.
No
not.
way.
No,
It's
not.
actually
It's
easier
not.
to do like just a chat. Yeah, I feel
It
like
is.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Like, I'll have this out. I'll have practiced it, and I will still find a way to screw it up.
Yeah.
So,
Yep.
but yeah, it is no secret that I am reading today's intro from a computer screen. So, all right. So, Jeremy, what we're going to do is we're going to just go into the intro, and then we'll talk.
That's what I'm here for. Let's
All
do
right,
it.
cool.
I'm stoked.
All right.
Hi, and welcome to Sound Discussion. Each episode, we discuss a music topic which we have all had first-hand experience with. These will be anything from getting started, recording, playing live, mixing, mastering, and everything in between. Most episodes, we will have a special guest to bring their professional experience to the discussion. So, let's get started.
Today's guest is someone I've known for quite a while, and he's had a pretty incredible journey through music. He's a producer based out of Columbus, Ohio, my hometown. He's toured full-time with Wolves at the Gate on Tooth and Nail Records. He wrote a regional Emmy-winning soundtrack for a short film, and since 2015, he's been producing records that consistently deliver results and keep his clients coming back for the next project. He's also worked on projects with Motherfolk, an indie rock band out of Cincinnati, and The Orphan, the Poet, an alt-rock band out of Columbus. And here's the kicker. He calls himself the most minimalist gearhead you'll ever meet, which is exactly why I wanted him on today, to talk about the tools he actually uses day to day, the ones he can't live without, the workflows that keep projects moving, and why less might really be more when it comes to producing. So, if you've ever wondered what a working producer really keeps in their toolkit, you're about to find out. Our guest this month on the Sound Discussion podcast is Jeremy Steckel. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hello, gentlemen.
How you doing, man?
Good to be with you guys.
Was that intro okay? Did I mess anything up?
That was the best intro I've ever had. So, yeah.
Hot damn. All right.
Yeah.
One take
done
this
with
month, man.
so
That was
I'll
one
put this
take,
off
dude.
this-
Yeah,
Yeah,
one
one
take.
take this month.
There we go. See? Just takes a little bit of mind power to
That's right.
not screw it up.
You've done this
I'm still
before, I can
sweating like
tell.
crazy, though,
Yeah.
because I'm super nervous.
I just got a mini split in my studio, like a AC thing, so it's way more cool in here than the last time I did an interview. I was like, my pits were just like, it was nasty.
That's
'Cause
the
it was just so
worst.
hot. Yeah, I got so nervous, So I fixed it this time. So.
But
That's
you don't
actually
need to be nervous.
No, there's no reason to be nervous here because
No,
we're all going to
No.
equally screw this up. Yeah.
Yeah. You will be the
course.
most professional person here, and we do this regularly. So,
Sick. Yeah, I'm here for it.
So, Jeremy, tell us a little bit about yourself for people who don't know who you are. There's plenty of other podcasts that you've been on, so we'll include some links to those so people can go and listen to, your podcast episode with Lid Shaw. But for anyone who doesn't know who you are, tell us a little about yourself and how you've gotten started and where you're at.
Yeah. So I, like you said, I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I came to the recording studio world from the other side of the glass, as they say. So I wanted to be in a band since I was a kid. It's funny, I wanted to play guitar and play music for a long time, but I just never did as a kid. I was so into sports, like basketball was my thing. So I was just like, all hours of the day, basketball was my thing, and then finally one day I picked up a guitar when I was in high school, and I basically just became obsessed with the guitar. Like the guitar was my portal into everything. And so, throughout high school, I played in, church bands and, just kind of anywhere I could jump into, a jam or, whatever, I would play, and then I'd come home and stay up all night playing. And I just became obsessed with the guitar. And then when I went to college, I met some guys who were also fairly obsessive players. And so we all kind of randomly connected and started a band. And that was the only band I was really ever a part of, is one band. And that band, we all decided to kind of go all in. And that band got signed, and we started touring and writing records and stuff. And that just became my career, like throughout most of my 20s, from 21 to, upper 20s. So that was also, I was telling Nate earlier, that was my first foray into like actual recording too. I really didn't know anything about recording or about how. I know I loved sound, and I knew what sounded good. I just had no idea how you did it, which is probably very similar for most of us, that, when you first start out, you have no idea how they do that. But I never cared until I was in a band and I saw the impact that it has on a band. Like, if you have an excellent sounding record, you as a band approach your art differently. And so when we finally got out of the kind of like demo producer guy phase of our band, which this was 15, 20 years ago, everybody, even having a home studio back then was kind of like weird. It was like very crappy interfaces, and you just kind of, MIDI, everything was MIDI drums, because you couldn't track in someone's apartment, and it was just very like hodgepodge. So it didn't really like translate the way that I wanted it to, but I didn't know that. So when we got signed to a record deal, we actually had a budget to go to a real recording studio. The rest was history. Like, we lived at the studio. It was like a live-in studio, basically. Like, they had like a really, really nice tracking, mixing room or live room. And then they had like a bunk room kind of attached. And it was this whole like little complex thing, which was kind of cool.
That's cool.
But we lived there for like a month and a half, just made the first real album that any of us had ever made. And, this was 2012, 2011. And that was my like literal obsession at that point. It just started like I was in the engineer. I was every stereotype. I was the guy sitting right here while he was mixing. Like, why'd you use that EQ? Like I was just like, wow, it's so bright eyed. Just like well, this is so cool, but not like from a cheesy way. Like, I was actually like, I could tell I was like, oh, this is like deep. Like, this is actually like something in me is coming alive that I just had no idea before. All I thought about was playing live before that. So anyway, all that to say, that was really the genesis of like, it was kind of a like, my life was going this way. We went to the studio. My life started to go this way. Like, it was a very dramatic sort of shift for me. Yeah. And then I just kind of became obsessed with that. I was still, very into playing guitar. We toured for a long time after that. And, we were on a label, so we had to tour. Like, that was just what you did. You had to, that's how everybody made money. The band, the label, the booking agents, publisher, everybody just made money when you toured. So we had to do that. But then eventually, when I got married, I decided this is probably the kind of like cutoff time, because I could tell the touring life was going to be, it's a grind. Like, it doesn't matter if you're touring like stadiums or if you're, doing 100 cap rooms. Like, it's tough. It's just a tough life. Yeah. So I think that was kind of the impetus for me, realizing like I actually do have the choice to, if I want to go into the studio world, like I could decide to do it now. And once I let that sink in, I was like, I think this is what I want to do. Like, I'm a technician, I'm like a hybrid technician creative person. I'm a very weird blend of the two. And live is just all creative, like all energy, but none of the technician part of me was getting to do anything, you know, because this was kind of before backing tracks, and like the way that people set up live shows now is so much more technical than when I was doing it, like 15 years ago. It was just plug into a 412 and blow your ears out and play as hard as you could. And there's something really cool about that, but there was a lot left on the table for me, if that makes sense, of just wanting to have control over like how my band sounds and like my guitar tone to like a detail that I just didn't mess with live, you know? So,
Right.
yeah. So then I worked at a church for a couple years doing live sound for a really, really big church in Columbus. And so I'm not a live sound guy. I don't really love it, but it does teach you, it teaches you a lot of problem solving and technical skills that some of them do really translate to the studio. Some of them don't, but some of them do. And so I kind of took all that. And then as soon as I got my first like client for the studio, I left that job. My wife was very gracious. We were broke as a joke at that point. But I got one nice paycheck. She was like, all right, you can go, you know, like, let's do it, you know? So I just went full time into production and, you know, haven't really looked back since then. So,
Wow.
Yeah.
That's that like point when you decided to go full time into production. That had to have been scary, because I can only imagine, like, you know, I'm sort of right on that edge where at some point soon, I imagine I'm going to be doing this full time, or that's the goal. And I'm terrified at this point, right? Like thinking about leaving my full-time job and going out on my own. I cannot imagine what it would be like when you don't have anything else. You're just like, well, I either starve or I step forward and, you know, do this.
No plan B.
Yeah,
Yep.
There is no plan B.
no plan B. Nope.
That's awesome.
Now I do currently work for my church part-time as kind of their creative director and stuff. So I love having a hand in that world too, but
Sure.
This is very much the, you know, but yeah, to your point, like it doesn't, you almost have to ignore the gravity of it sometimes, like, because it can feel like, I would get in my head about it, I think, when I was starting, and just think like, there's no way, like, how am I supposed to survive and support my wife and da-da-da. You know, well, the reality is like, well, we didn't have kids then. Okay. We didn't own a home. We were kind of just like figuring out what our lives were looking like. And it was kind of like for me, it was the window to just kind of dive and figure it out as we went. And I'm very much that way, just kind of,
Well, yeah, you can easily take a chance,
and then I just jump, you know. So,
yeah. I think it's one of those things that you know it's the right decision for you, right?
Yeah.
Regardless of whether it actually works out in the end or not. Obviously, it's brilliant when it does, but at that moment, you know that's the way you want to go. You know, that's all that was in it for you. And I think for me, you said something quite interesting, that you were the other side of the glass. So you were a musician and you went in the studio, and that's when you almost sort of like you fell in love with being in a studio. I find that really quite interesting, because I think in my experience, there are two types of people. You either go into a recording studio and you never want to leave and you'd like to live your life in a recording studio, or you go to a recording studio and you can't wait to get out and you never want to be in there again.
Yes.
They really do. Some people get that, the red light comes on and all of a sudden they can't play their guitar and they've forgotten everything they ever learned. And other people, it's a home from home, and that's where they're comfortable. You were obviously you're just very comfortable in a recording studio.
Absolutely, yeah. I am an obsessive preparer for things. So like if I, you know, like for instance, like, you know, when I first went into that legit studio, when everything changed for me, you know, all those years ago, you know, I knew every note of every part of every song on the record. You know, it was like, I could just wake up at 3 a.m. and you could hand me a guitar and I could play it. It was like, just at that point, you know. And so I kind of just realized, like, you know, that kind of like obsessive detail thing, it just appealed to me so much, watching yeah. So when the light would come on, to your point, I just kind of would revert back to like, what do I know? Just by heart. And I would just kind of go, and it just worked out really well. And my parts just kind of flew by. And I realized like, oh, I'm actually like kind of good in the studio. Cause I'd watched plenty of people, you know, just not be that way, I guess. Like they just, to your point, like it would come on and they would kind of shank every take. And it's like, well, I know how to play this. And then they'd get tense. And so I watched all of that happening on the other side, and as like not necessarily my band, but like I would see other bands in the studio. Like I would hang out at the studio, and other bands would come in, and I would see them kind of like get in that like tense. Yeah. And so that also, you know, I'm sure we'll talk about this, but that informed how I approach helping bands make records now, like to a degree that I had no idea I was learning at the time, you know?
Yeah. I was just going to say, how does that, I don't want to call it obsessive, but that really detailed preparation, how do you deal with clients who come in and clearly have not done a huge amount of detailed preparation? Let's put it that way, rather than they've come in and they're going to wing it.
Yeah, you know, that's a great question. I have, I feel like I've circled the wagon on how to deal with that over the last, really a decade is when I've been doing this kind of at a higher level. But at first, you know, it was just, well, let's just take 5, or let's go, you know, like reset our brains and stuff. And I still do that for sure. But what I found practically is much more helpful is to, before you ever even get to the stage of tracking anything, like spending loads of time with them, listening to demos and critiquing them endlessly, giving them weeks or months to practice stuff. And then basically, by the time, like my goal 100% of the time is by the time we get into the tracking phase and we're in the studio together, number one, we're homies, we're friends. Second of all, they know the parts. And third, everybody's driving everything to the same target. And that doesn't happen when you're just an engineer and you kind of like show up and a band has booked a day and they come in. You know, that's really hard to do unless you're just a savant at like people or something.
At that point, I think you're just hitting record and letting it happen, right? You're not producing anything.
You're barely even engineering. You're
capturing
like,
something and sending them on their way.
Right.
Do you ever give, or do you ever tell clients, hey, go record yourself, your timing's a little off, and then record yourself to a click? Because sometimes, like, I remember when I was first like getting into recording and I was recording myself, I'm like, I didn't realize I was even this bad timing wise until I recorded myself and I saw how off my strums were.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just don't even know that. Like you could prepare all day long. I know the parts. I could play that all day long.
That click track will reveal everything.
Oh, yeah. Not just the click track, but like seeing your strums go to the click track. Like,
finding the pocket.
Yeah.
Well, and there's other, to your point, there's other elements that people don't even know they're fighting. Like if you, for instance, if you have your buffer set way too high, you're going to think you're playing in time. And then you look at it and everything just feels loosey-goosey because it's all latency delayed. And if you don't know what you're doing, like it's such a technical thing to even do demos now. I mean, yeah, we say it's easy because you can just grab an interface and like, but you still have to sort of know what you're doing. And so I try to make sure like in the first meeting, to your question, Neil, like have they played the songs? Do they have a setup where they can legitimately hear themselves in their room rather than just like, you know, putting a iPhone on your knee and playing a guitar? I mean, that's fine if that's all you have, but I think most people have at least an interface now, you know? And so, yeah, definitely, again, to your point, like I will absolutely say, like, when you guys come in to track this, like you should be able to play this like pretty easily, or else let's just push the date, you know, like we don't have to do it right now.
Yeah. And even with vocalists, like you could practice it all day long, even record your own self and hear yourself. But if you get into the studio and the vocal level in your ear matters too, because if you've got it too high, you're not going to push enough. And then if you got it too low, you're going to be straining because it's the same thing live too, as a vocalist. Like if you can't hear yourself in your own ear, you're going to sing differently. And
totally. Yep. And the vocalists, it's funny you bring that up. That is by far the trickiest piece of this. Like a guitar player is one thing, like you put on the track and the backing, whatever, and you just play to it over and over and over again. But as we all know, as singers, like it's a physicality that is completely different than basically every other instrument, maybe besides drums. But even then, it's much more like intimate to sing, I would say. And so, you know, I will try to get a sense pretty quickly. Does this person like to sing in the morning? Or do they like to sing at night? You know, do they are they confident in the way they say? You know, the vocalist psyche is just such a, like, you have to be a master at that to really get good performances out of people. But again, to bring it back to like having people practice and stuff, I have found that it's hard for singers to do that well on their own, because usually one of the following is true. They either don't have a great mic, so they don't quite sound right, or they have way too much or way too little reverb, or they have some Logic preset that they're singing through in the demo, but it just doesn't sound right, and so they don't feel good about their performance. Yeah. Then they come in and they're like, ugh, they kind of start off like, I don't listen to the demo, but just hear it, you know. Right. And they kind of have this like, even if it's unspoken, it's kind of this vibe of like they're rarely like stoked on their vocal demo, you know. And that's not because they're bad. It's because just like it's hard to record vocals really, really well on your own unless you really just know what you're doing, or that's like what you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And if you're on a different mic, if you're so used to singing in one mic and hearing your own voice through one mic, and you go to sing in a different mic, it feels so weird, especially from dynamic to condenser mic. That is different too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, the SM7 is like what everybody has at home, you know, or a 58 or whatever. And then you come into my studio and you've got this tube condenser that just every single little like mouth noise and throat, you sound like larger than life, almost like in a bad way, you know? So I tell people to turn themselves down in their headphones. Usually they have themselves way too loud, you know, because they want to hear, they want to feel like they're, you know. But I try to help singers get into the mix in their headphones, which is another reason why I don't have a separate mix to my headphones than them. I want to hear what they're hearing. Yeah. So I always have the vocalist mix mirrored in my ears, even if it's like a crazy mix, even if they want to have drums crazy loud and like whatever they want to do, I'll make sure it's just not bleeding out into the mic, but that their levels are good, and then I'll just copy that over to my headphones, because I want to know, I don't want to feel isolated from them. And I always have them right next to me. I never have singers, like, if I can help it, in the other room. Like, I always want to have them close, because like I'm like the turnaround guy. Like I want to feel like I'm a part of the session, you know.
So you normally track vocals, if you can, in your control room rather than in the recording
I've always
space.
done it that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. Partly out of necessity, where I had a commercial space for a while, for 7 or 8 years. Nate, I think you saw it one time. You stopped down in Columbus.
The old the old schoolhouse looking building?
It's this old schoolhouse that got converted into all these different suites, and I took one over and soundproofed it and stuff.
That was an incredible place. That place was beautiful.
It was beautiful. I definitely miss it, but it was just one big room. And so I always, you know, I would build kind of like a tent for the, you know, I had these gobos I built and stuff, and I'd build a tent, just bring it over right by me. The room I'm in now, I'm at my house. This is like an addition kind of onto our house, totally isolated from the rest of the house, like super dead. So when people come over, again, it's just one room. So I've always just kind of had the one room thing, but now that I work that way, even if I was at a studio with like a bunch of ISO rooms, I'd have a hard time being like, hey, can you go all the way across the room? And I'll look at you like, if I had to do it, that's fine. I get it. Like some places just don't have room for that. But if it's just me and one other person, usually we make it work, you know?
Nice.
Yeah.
Real nice. Yeah. Interesting spaces. They are the thing that you were just saying it was in an old school house that was converted. Nothing to do with this conversation. I went to the theatre here where I live last Saturday and watched Jesus Christ Superstar in the smallest theatre you can imagine. It's like 100 people max.
Oh wow!
And the I don't know why I'm telling you this, but I'll get to it. It will make sense.
There is a point.
And the stage is down on the ground level, and there's a balcony that goes all the way around on the top. So you're looking straight down.
Oh, so it's like a theater, like in the round kind of thing.
Yeah. And it was absolutely amazing. And they did such an incredible job. And the performers played the instruments while on stage performing.
That's cool.
It was brilliant. They were so good.
Wow.
But I just sat there thinking, this is the greatest building to put a recording studio in, because the space, imagine an old church stroke barn that's really tall with a space in the bottom. You could put a control room. I just sat there for the whole thing thinking, well, they're great, but also what an incredible space to put a recording studio in.
I bet a snare sample would sound awesome in here.
Be amazing.
I dream about like finding an old like rustic barn and fixing it up and turning it into just a one giant space. Like I agree with you, Jeremy. I think having the one space concept for me also makes a lot of sense. Maybe having like one booth to throw like guitar cabs into, or the odd instrument that we don't want any bleed on kind of thing. But like having those sort of just like big giant rooms, and you can space people apart and minimize the bleed, but have everybody sort of organically feeding off of each other in the same space. Like that is the dream. And I dream about like finding an old barn somewhere and converting it. It's probably never going to happen, but it's cool to dream about.
You never know.
Nah,
just go out of the city. You'll find something.
That's the thing. It's like everything that we like is in the city. So like
it definitely won't be in the city.
We start driving like 45 minutes east, and we're like, this is too far out. We can't.
Too far.
Can't live here.
I know. Yeah, that's why I built this space at my house. It's a blessing and a curse to have my room at my house. Because it's like work is always kind of right here, but it is by far the best mix room I've ever had in my life, and I think it's made a huge difference in just clarity and my workflow and all of that. So the pros definitely outweigh the cons, but I can track some tight drums in here for sure. It's a very punchy, very tight, which is great. But then actually another benefit of this space is forcing me to go to other studios, because I don't really have room here to do a full band, or if I want to do a big drum kind of thing, then I'll just go to, there's a couple of studios in downtown Columbus that I'll go to and rent. And it's just so fun to get out. Like when I had my other space, I just always used that space because I'm renting it. It's like my space,
Right.
But yeah, having the ability to, or really not even just the ability, but like the push to go to another space has been a blast. I split my time now, between a couple studios, and it's super fun.
How big is your space?
The space I'm in right now?
Yeah.
It's very small. It's like 160 square feet. So it's like 14 by 12. Yeah. So it's just a room. It's just like kind of like a small living room. But we built the wall behind me. This goes right into my kitchen, but we built this. It's a 14-inch thick wall. Has six layers of drywall, 2 stud frames that aren't touching, completely. You can scream on one side and barely hear it on the, kind of a thing. So I can mix after the kids go to bed, and nobody knows I'm in here. So
the other side of that is nobody knows you're in there.
Well, we do have like a doorbell thing where like, because we realized like if something happened on the other side of the house and my wife needed to come get me, like if she knocked and I was mixing, there's no way I wouldn't hear her. It's so isolated. So we have this silent doorbell that like the light shines and stuff,
Nice.
So it's like,
that's a good idea.
Yeah. We were trying to figure this problem. We didn't think about that until we built it, and we were like, oh, I should probably know if like my family's okay.
Right. Yeah, like a panic button or something like that.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
So, okay. So you were in a band and you were signed to Tooth and Nail Records, man. Mm-hmm. Like I remember Tooth and Nail Records growing up in the 90s, like bands like Stavesacre. I think that's how you pronounce it.
Stavesacre. I just bought their reissue.
Really?
I don't know, last couple months ago. I don't know. Yeah.
Oh,
it was Blindside on Tooth and Nail
was on there.
Blindside.
I believe Blindside
I don't know if
was
they
on there.
were when I was on basically every band I grew up listening to at one point was on Tooth and Nail. Like that.
Yeah,
that was
same
the
there, man.
scene I
Slick
grew up
Shoes,
in. Slick
Shahoo.
Shoes. Well, there was like Hangnail. There were all these like punk bands that were on there. And there's also we were on
Strong Arm.
Solid State, which is like a sub label.
Oh, yeah,
of
yeah.
Tooth
Oh, you
and
were on
Nail.
Solid State. Okay,
so we
cool.
were on Solid. To be technical, our contract is with Tooth and Nail, but we were on the like heavier like label. You know, not the pop punk side, but the breakdowns. You know, the heavy music side of it.
Nice.
So I was in a band once, and we used to play shows in St. Pete with Under Oath.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Back in the day. Yeah. No, just seemed Tooth and Nail when you had said that.
Yeah.
They're
kind of the like, they're like the cream of the crop with that. I mean, we grew up pretty obsessed with that band, you know, when we were starting our band.
None of I don't think any of the original members were in it later. It's all different members now, but yeah. I was never in charge of booking, but so I only hung out with them if my band was hanging out with them. But
right. That's cool. Yeah, there's a bunch of good bands that came out of Florida.
Yeah, wasn't
that
it
scene.
Further Scenes Forever? Weren't they on Tooth and Nail?
who?
Further Scenes Forever?
I think they might have been at one point. There's some other like A Day to Remember, and there's some other bands from Florida that Under
St.
Oath.
Pete was a pretty big hardcore rock scene down there.
That's cool. I didn't know that.
Yep.
Wow.
Something good came out of Florida.
Yeah.
Oranges.
Look at that.
Florida.
So, Jeremy, the music that you produce nowadays is pretty different from, the band or bands that you were in. So when you were making that transition or sort of establishing yourself, did you immediately jump into sort of the style of music you work on now? Or was there this transition period where you maybe were working with bands and you moved more towards the sort of pop side of things? What was that like for you? And the things that you maybe learned early on in the band as far as tracking and performance aspects, maybe some things that you left in that world and maybe some things you brought with you into what you do today.
Yeah, it's a great question. So one of the things that prompted me to get really involved in the recording studio world is the realization that had been dawning on me for a few years that I was just a lover of pop music way more than I thought I was. Like, I think maybe way more than I, not like let on or something, but I just always kind of went back to hard rock and heavy stuff because that was what I played, and that's all my friends were in those bands, and that was the world I was in. But I just always found myself like after shows on the bus or just generally when I was walking around listening to music or whatever, I was just always listening to like pop or pop adjacent, indie pop or alternative pop or whatever. And so I realized that like, I think it was around that time where I realized that genre is just the type of shirt you're wearing. It's not the person under the shirt, And so I realized that like my band, even as we all sort of came to this realization that we all loved pop in just different ways, but we kind of were we still loved heavy music, and we were kind of like grappling with how do we marry these two things. And so one of the cool things about being in the particular band that I was in is the singer, his name was Steve, and they're very much still a band. They're on Tooth and Nail. They are doing very well. If you look them up, they're a pretty big band. Steve was just so good at taking heavy music and putting this pop sensibility vocal behind it, which really led to a lot of the popularity of that band is just his skill set with that pop thing, and just the hookiness and kind of the structuring of songs. He was just so good at that and still is so good at that. And so I learned a lot from him being in the band. He was just naturally very gifted at that. And so when I kind of stepped back it was tough to step back from the band. I mean, that was a very like emotional time for me and for the guys. Like we had all kind of started it together, and I was the first one getting married, and just kind of had, it was a very like, I wish I could have lived two lives at once sort of thing. I wish I could, but sometimes you just have to make decisions like that. And I felt very strongly that, the studio and, this new thing was really what I was called to do. But, to answer your question, I really leaned into that pop sensibility. Like I feel like I had gotten my fix of heavy music, and I was really interested in just obsessively getting better at writing pop music and really producing pop music at like a higher level than just, acoustic pop or kind of like organic pop. Like I had heard a lot of that, of just like very simple stuff. And I love that, like the kick drum and the acoustic and the piano and the vocal and, the kind of Lumineers, like 2010s sort of thing. But I really love the like top 40 production. I just thought it was, I think, everybody finds it a little fascinating how you can get stuff to sound that good and that tight. Even if it's not like your favorite song, it's like, it's incredibly impressive production, And so that, I just decided, dude, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to freaking figure out how to get drums to punch like that, and how to get bass to sound like that, and how do you get this wall of synths, but you can still hear all the synth layers, and it's just there's so much Tetrising that you have to do. And so I just, I really looked for bands that were interested in doing that. Like that's who I really sought out when I was starting out in the studio, and the bands that I had the most success with were the ones doing or kind of seeking after that too, and then I feel like now I've sort of circled back to where I'm not trying to just do like top 40 stuff. Like I really care about, like I tell everybody my bread and butter is like indie pop, like indie rock / indie pop, where it's maybe not top 40, but it's really tight production, but still like has a very unique character to that band. Like it's tailored very specifically to that band. Like I really don't want to ever have a sound, I think, in production. Like I don't want to be one of those producers or mix engineers where when I'm 60, like I listen back to everything and it's like, oh yeah, that's what I did all the time on bass or whatever. Like the game for me in it, the whole like competitive game part of it is like, it's just getting every single record to sound totally different from the last record and tailoring that record specifically to the person I'm working with. Because usually when you do that, this funny thing happens where it just turns out really great. That's
the secret.
I genuinely
secret.
believe that.
Wow.
Yeah, I genuinely believe that. Because in that sort of, if you extrapolate that out, it really makes a difference with like how you view mix revisions, for example. So when I first started out, mix revisions to me were just like failure. It's like you always want to give it on the first, like hit it with the first mix and you crush it, and it's like the band's like, wow, it's the best mix I've ever heard. No notes, But then I realized, there was a correlation between the better bands I was working with, the more notes I would get. But they were not notes about like, hey, I hate the way this sounds or whatever. It was more just like steering me in my creativity in the studio into what their goal was. Like they just had a clear goal. And so those mix notes were very, very, very efficiently funneling us to this target. And then when I, every once in a while, I'll just go back and listen to old records I worked on. And those are the records that sound way better than the other records, where it's just kind of like, oh, yeah, the drums sound fine. They, no notes, they, or just kind of this like laissez-faire approach to how the mix sounds or whatever. Like they weren't pushing me at all. It was just kind of like, oh, yeah, you do your thing. Like, I just want to get it off to mastering and be done. It's the bands that really like push back that, at the end of that process, as tiring as that is, it's like, wow, this is like, this is going on my discography, like playlist,
Yeah.
This is kind of a staple record.
Do you think that, so I think this is something I've noticed is the better artists, regardless of, I'm not saying they are the best guitarist, but the better artists have a much more defined vision for what they are trying to achieve when they approach a project. So whether it's an album, an EP, a one-off single, they have a much more finished view of what they're trying to make, rather than I want to go in the studio and record an album.
Right.
I want to go in the studio and I want to do this and I want it to sound like this and I want it to be. Do you find that as well, that there are better artists, not necessarily better musicians, but there are better artists who come with that vision ready to go?
Yes. Yeah. That's a really great question. And it's funny how correlated that they are with the more direct an artist is, the more focused and mentally sharp they are with what they're trying to do. That trickles down to everything. It's more efficient sessions. They're honestly more fun. They're more enjoyable. The tones that you go for are much more attainable because you actually know what tone you're going for, and we're all trying to get there the same way. Drum tracking becomes easier because we don't want to do the Foo Fighter drum thing. We want to do the Tame Impala's super tight drum thing or whatever. It's we just know how to set up the drums and we can just run with the drums and they sound great, right? It has so many trickle down effects when, again, to what I was saying earlier, when you spend the time to pre-production is everything for me. And pre-production can be anything from send me your voice memos and I'll give you my notes to send me your fully fleshed out songs. You've tracked everything. We're just going to go in and get better tones. That's more rare, but some people are like that. Everything's done and they just want to go in and, whatever. When you have that specific focused mentality, it's so much more fun and you get so much more out of it. Now, that's not to say that you have to have that to make music. I'm a very firm believer that, we were created as creative beings, from a creative God, and we are designed to create. So you should be creating all the time. There's nothing stopping you from creating. But don't assume that because you're a creative person, you can just kind of step into this world and just immediately light it on fire with, every once in a while that happens. But a lot of times it's not because you were unprepared. It's really because maybe the song was that good or you connected with just the right person. And, but 99, times out of 100 or more than that, it's the prepared ones that
you have to put the work in.
They win. Yeah, they just win.
Yeah. You got to put the work in.
You have to put the work in.
I think you only have to. You mentioned the Foo Fighters. You only have to watch a Foo Fighters documentary. They put the work in. They don't just rock up and accidentally record a brilliant album.
They're one of the hardest working rock bands out there.
They put the work in.
Yeah. Yeah, if you watch Sonic Highways or their back and forth, all those documentaries, it's you're just seeing a tiny glimpse into Taylor Hawkins worked on his drum Dave Grohl was his singer. Those dudes know drums. You can imagine how much time them and Butch Vig spent on those drum sounds.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And there's a reason why they're playing stadiums,
Yeah. They put in the work. They put in the hours.
Also, the stress. Can you imagine being Taylor Hawkins in the first studio session?
Everybody thought that because how many bands could you be in where you're the drummer and you're as good as Taylor Hawkins, but the singer could be I'll just do it. At any point, he could just be actually, I'll just try it real quick.
Yeah, he did that for the first time.
Yeah. Ugh. Didn't like the drums on the first track, so he just redid them.
He just redid it. Yeah.
Just redid it. That's what you do. So Nate mentioned at the beginning that you are the most minimal gear freak around.
Yeah.
How? Explain. I'd love to know. So you don't have lots of gear? You do have lots of gear.
I do and I don't. I think it depends on who you compare me to. I'll tell you what I'm not, and then I'll work my way into what I am. I am not a laptop and interface only guy.
Yeah.
I'm also not an analog purist, but I would say I am, if those are the extremes and the center is kind of a true hybrid, I lean towards the analog side, I would say. I'm left of center or whatever, that side of center a little bit. But I would say, I think my thought when I kind of was thinking about when I call myself like a minimal gearhead, I absolutely love gear. Like I have friends that like we flip gear, I'm a guitar nut, guitar, bass, synth, like got a whole wall of like modular synth over here that you can't see, and I've got my Juno and my DX7 from the 80s. Like I've got all that stuff because I've decided those are the sounds I really like. Mm-hmm. So the only reason I have these old synths is not because they're old synths, it's because like specifically the sounds that they make are exactly what I want. So why would I try to do an emulation when I could just, like, I had a chance to get a Juno, like an original, 80s or whatever Juno, and so I just did, But
I think it's the right move.
Yeah, well, yeah.
It depends on who you say that to. But
it's definitely appreciated, but it's probably gonna be in my family way past me. I don't know when I would ever get rid of it, but yeah, all that to say, like, I think I've just am a very focused gear person where I don't really enjoy having 20 options of the same thing. Yeah. I really like having 2 or 3 extremely high quality options to choose from. Because when I produce, I work very, very quickly. I really don't like, I definitely will go down rabbit holes. Like that's part of being a producer, is like going down with somebody down the weird feedback guitar pedal loop thing and just getting weird sounds and stuff. But it's not because we don't know what we're trying to do. It's just because we've got 2 really good loop pedals and let's see which one we like better, or like whatever, like 2 weird delay pedals. And so I sold most of my gear over the years, and I've really just, the thing I do invest a lot in, and I have a lot of options of them, are guitar pedals and guitars, because different guitars and guitar pedals, and I'm kind of working on building up some different like snares and things like that. But it's nothing digital that I like to have lots of. It's just different versions of guitars, and I'll pretty much have all my guitars tuned differently. I'll have like one, dual humbucker guitar, one P90 guitar, one Strat, and one Tele, all tuned differently, set up with different rigs. And with those 4 guitars, like I can make any record, I could pretty much do anything. Now, sometimes I get a deal and I'll snag a guitar, and I've got a basement full of stuff that I probably should sell, But actually in the studio here, it's very like tidy and sort of very specific. Like I'll wait to buy an acoustic. Like I waited to buy an acoustic guitar until I found the like 1960s Gibson acoustic that I always wanted. And I found a deal on it and I snagged it, and that's my acoustic now, I just didn't want to have like 5 kind of crappy acoustics laying around. So I would just borrow acoustics or whatever until I found that guitar. So that's just like one example of things that I've chosen to have that they do one thing and they do it really, really well,
Yeah. Don't have 5 bad guitars, have one really good guitar.
100%. Because if you know what you're doing, you can make that one guitar sound like 5 different guitars, just using different amps and pedals. And if you really know what you're doing with tunings and stuff and layering, like you can go pretty far with one guitar. Yeah.
It's something I always think about, is the number of times that there's you can console emulation. You could have 46 different console emulations loaded on your computer. If you go to a recording studio, guess how many consoles they've got? They've got one.
Maybe 2 if they're like epic.
Well,
I've never seen 2. If they do, they're I mean,
even if you go to you go to Abbey Road, they've got 3.
Yeah.
They've got one for Studio A, one for Studio Studio 1, Studio 2, Studio 3. So the sound of the console for that studio is that console.
Totally.
They don't go, which one of 96 consoles shall I be using today?
Yeah. It's funny too, because like I feel like I'm sure like all of you guys, like I've listened to thousands of hours of like producer, mixer, mastering guys talk about this stuff, and when I was younger, you would hear somebody say something like, it's not the gear, it's your ears, or it's not, just like these trite kind of things or whatever. And I would always be like, yeah, but like what gear do you have? Like, I don't care about what your ears sound like. Like what, because like I was just trying to figure out what sounds good. How do you make stuff, The older I get, though, I do see what they're saying, where if you know what you want, like you just need one thing. Like you just need an SSL or whatever, like that thing gets, like the other studio I track at, they have a Trident console. And when I track over there, I just use the preamps in the console.
Yeah.
Because it's just one sound across the drum kit. And then whenever I bring that back into my studio, I was texting Nate and some of the other guys a few months ago in our like mastermind chat about this. I was like, man, there is something to like using the same preamp on everything. You just kind of have this, like, it speaks in a different way, just slightly.
It's cohesion to the sound.
There is, and I don't even know how to quantify that. I don't know if I'm insane. Maybe I just think that because I know it was all the same preamp, whatever.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
but there's something to it, you know, having like a sound that you've committed to and you just move on. Like that's the sound of the drums, and
definitely.
You know.
And as we always say, when everyone comes on, the end listener doesn't know and doesn't care.
Doesn't care.
Nope. All they go, do I like it? Does it sound good?
Yep.
They don't know what preamp you used, what microphone you used, which desk it went through.
No. It's just for guys like us to talk about. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely. Don't obsess about those decisions.
Nobody cares. Yeah.
Obsess about is the song right? Is the structure right? Is the production right? Have I recorded it well? Don't obsess about what you used to record it.
Which is, I mean, that's such a great point. Like, I could not agree with that more. Like, I used to be obsessed with that stuff, and that's why I call myself a minimalist now, because I realize none of that stuff really matters. And so my actual life's work now that I want, not to like, this sounds like really epic or whatever, but like what I want to do with my career is to be a better songwriter. Yeah. Like that's what I want to do, because I make songs with people in the studio. I don't make gears with people in the studio. I don't just make sounds. Like that's a part of it, but if the song is great, everything I do to it's just going to make it sound great. And if it doesn't sound great, it's obviously not supposed to be for that song, and you just get rid of it. But a great song illuminates everything. It's like that's either a great part or that's a terrible part, you know, or whatever.
It's one of the great things. Go on,
a great song matters more than the recording itself. Like it could almost be, there could be mistakes here and there. If it's a great song, like you hear great songs all the time from like even back in the 90s and 80s and whatnot. You'll hear mistakes here and there in the recordings and oh, maybe it wasn't perfect, but there's that human element to it. But the song is just so damn good. It doesn't matter.
It's so good.
It doesn't matter.
It's one of the joys I have of being a mastering engineer. It really is, because I don't know how you've recorded it. I've no idea. I've no idea how it ended up in front of me. All I can do is pull it up and go, yeah. That's a really good song. Or, okay, there's some bits I need to work on. But do you know what I mean? It's like, I don't have any of that headache of how are we going to get from the artist's hands to a final product. I just hear the final product and it's like, love it. You know?
Ben, can I ask you a question on that? Actually, I've always wanted to ask this. Like, do you feel like, so you probably listen to more music almost per day than any of us if you're, mastering just like, or I would say in perpetuity, you probably listen to a lot of, do you, like to what I was saying earlier about like a focused sound, you kind of get like better sounding records. Can you tell when you master stuff that was a part of the process? Like a song is all speaking together tonally or something? I would imagine you sort of can on... versus a song where it's just like kind of sounds okay, but it doesn't feel cohesive or something. Like, is that an identifiable thing to you?
Yeah, definitely more on certainly on an EP or an album. If you can tell if there is a cohesive plan for the album or whether they just wrote 8 songs and threw them together.
Interesting.
Usually you can tell if they are mixed by completely different people. So occasionally, artists, and that's sometimes it's because artists can't afford at one go to have somebody mix the whole album. So they've done track 1, they've recorded it, it's been mixed, then someone else has recorded tracks 2 and 3 and they've been mixed. And you can usually tell if they're not mixed by the same people and recorded in different places because tonally they are different. You'll be fixing a 198, 200 hertz snare hong in track 1 that doesn't exist in 2, 3, 4 or 5 because they weren't recorded in the same place and the same person didn't mix them. But it's harder on just if you get a single. But you can usually I can usually tell if they had if they had a vision for what everything in that single sounded like, or what the single sounded like.
Yeah.
So I can usually tell if they were like, no, that's not the right bass sound. That's not what I was looking for. Or because sometimes it's just like, oh yeah, I found a bass sound. They played the bass part. And to me, and probably to Nate and Neil and yourself, you would go, I don't think that's the right bass sound for that record. But they've gone, that's fine. And we've all moved on, and we've got a single, and we're away.
Yeah, we're not worried about it. Yeah.
It's harder on singles than it is on an album. It's really obvious.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I was listening to the radio the other day, a college radio station up here in Cleveland, and a song came on. Never heard of it before, but I found myself really enjoying it and getting into the song. You know, I probably captured like what it was on my phone to come back to it later. But I remember thinking like, this is a cool song. I really enjoy this, but I would not have chosen that guitar sound. You know, so I found myself like immediately going into that sort of analytical side of like, this is great. I don't like that guitar. I would have done something totally different.
I do that all the time with Billie Eilish and Phineas. Not that there's a wrong, but I sit there and go, I would not have picked that tone for that part. But clearly they're right, and I'm not right because
but, you know, I don't know.
It sounds incredible. Is that the
thing? Like it. I wonder how sometimes these tones are sort of decided upon, because like I listen to it and I'm like, that just sounds so dark, or that sounds so whatever, and it doesn't feel appropriate for me. But in the studio, when they're making it, when they're setting the boundaries for this song, and they say, well, we purposefully want this to be a dark mix, and immediately I listen to something like that and I'm like, geez, I really want to brighten this up. But I think that's just me.
So I think, Nate, that's exactly the bit I was saying about if it's on an album, it becomes obvious that it is a tonal choice across the whole album.
Right.
And there's a definitive vision that that's how they want it to sound. When it's on a single, you can just go, well, I don't know if that bass sounds right. You know, but it could be, if there's 8 songs like that, you go, oh, okay, that is the vision for that.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And I think too, like your taste as someone helping an artist make a song is so important. Like, not that I have necessarily like great taste or something, but if someone's paying you money to help them create a song,
they want your taste. They want your opinion.
They want your taste, or they at least, at the very minimum, are confident enough to pay the invoice that your taste is going to help get them where they want to go.
Make a better product.
Make a better product, yeah. Because like it or not, we are helping people make a product, like a thing. You know, it's not a physical thing that I can touch, but it's about as close as you can get. And it's arguably much more timeless than a physical thing. So it is. I take it very seriously that like someone's willing to do that with me, you know. And so it kind of behooves me to listen to tons of different music and really like stay connected to what's going on, and not like pigeonhole myself into like, I love this one genre and like this, you know. That's why I don't want my records to all sound the same. Like I would love to do, you know, I just love all kinds of stuff, you know. Obviously I have the stuff I really love to do, but yeah, it's that's the beauty of the whole thing. It's just being really, really like well versed in different bass tones. Like if you want like a wide bass, I know how to do that. And you're like, well, that sounds weird. Well, I'll show you really quick, you know, and get this chorus thing going, but you still have the low end that's mono and it's really cool. Or if you want to have like super drivey punk bass, I know how to get that. Like you do have to know how to grab stuff for people. You know, that's part of the job and the journey, really, you know.
Definitely.
Cool. Yeah, so when you kind of talked about, you know, the gear that you have in your studio and those prize pieces, but what are some of your favorite things to get those sounds with? Like, you know, you're tasked with creating something and you say, oh, the Juno is perfect for this, or the Yamaha, what is it, the DX7?
Mm-hmm.
You know, so what, not necessarily like what makes you say like that's it, but you know, when you go to the Juno, do you have already in mind like what settings you're going to set, or do you just experiment? Obviously, sort of where you want to go.
Yeah, that's a great question. I don't know how like nerdy you guys want to get, but I can tell you sort of like how I run stuff, and I won't get like too deep, but
yeah, give us an example of like, one thing, like
totally. So if someone wants to get like if we're like in synth world, like maybe we have drums and bass done, and we've got like a scratch guitar, but we want to have the chorus kind of feel, bigger or whatever. Like I'll probably reach for the Juno, because it really has so many sounds on it that are different than just the like Stranger Things 80s sort of thing. That's one reason I love that particular synth, is it really does have a lot of stuff people don't really talk about. And so I'll hunt through stuff, and usually I'll do it until the person I'm with is like, ooh, and then I'll stop and like we'll fix that one. But I have everything in my studio. Part of the benefit of having a smaller room like this is I can have everything just wired into everything without like an enormous cable run. So I have, I work in Pro Tools, but I also have Ableton. I'm really like getting into Ableton as the years go on, because that's really where people are like playgrounding, like they're just like playing around with sounds so much in Ableton now that it's like I want to, So one of the things Ableton's really good at is you can have a channel in Ableton spit out into, like I can have a MIDI out from my interface into all my synths and have it come back into Pro Tools. But Ableton has way better like arpeggiators and samplers and, the kind of like fun random MIDI stuff. It just does that way better than Pro Tools for whatever reason. So all my synths are hooked into Ableton, where I can program or get like really weird like arpeggios or an arpeggiator, or like it has these really cool like step sequencers where you can punch in chords and it'll like walk through the chords that Pro Tools just has no idea how to do that. So I have all that stuff kind of synced into Pro Tools. So we'll quickly kind of figure out, do we want like a pulsing sort of like synth thing, or do we want to do more pad, ambient sort of thing? And it's all really quick because the Juno just has so much stuff in it. And I really love being able to click a knob or click a button and go through presets rather than click. Because all I do when I mix and edit is click, Right. And I need that reset of my brain to like look at a physical piece of hardware, because there is, as stupid as it sounds, there is totally a thing to turning something with your hand in your brain, activating it in a different way. It's
absolutely,
it is totally different than menu diving. It just is. They're both valid. I want to be able to do both of them, but the older I get, the more I want to have just something that I can, mangle and wrangle on my own, So
absolutely.
That's where that comes into play. But yeah, to answer your other question just about pieces that I have that I love, the Kemper has been a foundational piece of my studio for a long time. I used to have just a wall of amps, and I do love amps as a guitar player. Like who doesn't? They're amazing.
Right.
But my Kemper sounds as good as any mic'd amp I've ever been able to get. And so being able to just have that in my studio at the ready at all times, and it has stereo effects. So I can run synths through it, I can run guitars through it, vocals, samples from my OP1 or whatever, just run it through that. And the Kemper just has this like richness to I guess some of the effects and sounds that it has that I've really just grown to love. So if you gave me like a Juno and a Kemper, a couple good guitars and a drum kit, like I feel like I could basically make any record,
Conquer the world, man.
Yeah. And like a mic and, and all that. But that's basically all I have in here, and then I have a couple like Neve preamps. The one new thing I've gotten is, I did decide recently, and I actually talked to Nate about this, because Nate you've been kind of building like an analog mix bus, at least for a little while.
Here we go.
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, no, I was just picking his brain, like, what did you get? What do you like or whatever? And I used to have like a pretty nice analog chain when I would mix, but then I hated recalls with it, and it just never really like seemed to be better to me. This was years ago. It was like cool because it was gear, but
I completely
it wasn't.
agree with that. I completely agree with that. Is it better? Because I've had times where I've run stuff through my analog chain and I'm like, is this actually better?
Yeah.
Or is it just a little bit louder? Or am I hearing something that isn't there? And sometimes I don't use it, right? I'll just stay in the box for a song because it's just not.
Yeah.
Doesn't seem to be worth it.
Maybe it's not better.
So,
yeah.
Maybe it's not better. I don't know.
But I was kind of getting a sense from so I generally mix most of the productions that I do. I really love mixing. And so I decided semi-recently that I really wanted to have one piece of gear that it could all run through, where it wasn't a bunch of things stacked together, but I almost wanted to contain the frequency band of what I was working on into like the listenable range rather than like the crazy high and the crazy low. Like it was almost like I was just getting a sense of like it's hard to wrangle sometimes a full production, and I just wanted to have a box where I could kind of sculpt as it was kind of going out. And so I got this Rupert Neve master bus transformer. So it's got like an EQ on it. It's like a Pultec EQ, a compressor, like a width thing, and then I think they call it like Super Silk. I'm looking at it. Yeah, they're like harmonics thing or whatever. And so it's just basically like my whole mix bus is now in this one box, and then I have plugins to just augment if I need. But it's really like, it sounds extremely good, but it also has just sped up my mixing. I don't fiddle around as much. I just kind of get the mix bus going, and I can like work faster, you know? So those are the pieces I'm looking for now at this point, when I've kind of had one of everything in a lot of ways. Do
you find that you kind of leave your master bus piece of equipment there? Like, do you just leave the knobs where they're set? Do you change it a whole lot when a new track goes through it, or you just find it just works?
No, I change it. Yeah.
Okay.
I change it. This particular box is really interesting because I think it came out last year. It's like a really new piece of gear, and it's how do I describe it? It's clearly meant only for the mix bus. Like you can turn the knobs all the way up and every single channel, and it feels like it's doing a little bit. You know, like every single knob could be dimed, and it's like, oh, it just sounds a little brighter, a little warmer, a little punchier, whatever. And that's what I like about it is like you can really like wrangle this thing because it's not like a channel strip that you're putting on your mix bus and you're trying to like, you know, I'm sure that would sound good too if it was like a nice channel strip, but this is very contained just to the mix bus. It's clearly not meant for like just to run one channel through it. You know, it's like only for that. So I really love to just like kind of make the sound of each record a little different, and you know, if I want it brighter or darker, and you just kind of go from there. But I do sort of end up at the same spot, which is kind of funny. Like I have sort of found, I've only had it like 6 or 8 months, and so I'm still kind of figuring out what it all does and how it all reacts to, you know, a big hip hop mix or like a big pop mix, like what's the low end doing versus like a rock mix where it's a little more pointy or whatever. So, but it's been really fun to use. So that's the only piece of analog gear that I use at all anymore.
Yeah, I'm just looking at a picture of it. That's a nice piece of kit.
Yeah, it was a very deliberated purchase. I was like, if I'm gonna do this, I want to get something that I think I would want to have for a while. Yeah, you know.
And spend the money one time, right? Like do it right.
Definitely.
I get the whole, you know, acquiring bits of gear, or leveling up to the next bigger thing, but I guess I see both sides of the argument. Because I've certainly had pieces that I've bought and said, well, yeah, okay, I'll sell it and, you know, get whatever this other thing is. But if I'm going to spend a few $1,000s on something, not even a few, even up to $1,000, like that's a pretty serious purchase. Like I want to make sure I'm actually buying something that's useful for me and not just to collect something. Right? Like, oh, cool, I got the new, you know, whatever. And you sell it 6 months later.
And like to that point, like I'm very like hypersensitive to Like I'm very much a capitalist. I get it. But we are just living in a very interesting time, I feel like, with gear and stuff where we're like, at no other time in history have people been fed gear the way that we're fed, just through like I get on my phone to read an email from like my dad, and I get an ad for I don't know, it's like constantly we get like the hot new Instagram plugin company that just bombards my feed where, okay, fine, I'll try it eventually, and you just kind of like, and again, there's nothing wrong with trying new stuff. Like I still do that. I love it, whatever. But just like we are fed that stuff way more, I think, than we realize. And so I want to be super mindful of that and like, get stuff that I think is actually going to make a big difference, And I don't always do that. Like I don't always do a good job, but that's my goal,
Well, I think that's important for any producer to find that focused sound, right? Find that direction, is not have a million choices available to them, right? Talking about Abbey Road, Ben, you had one console, you had one of everything, maybe two if you were lucky, right? When they started working in stereo instead of mono, but like you just had that microphone for that.
Yeah.
You have one microphone for this and one microphone for that. You don't have endless options of modeling something or other. Like having the Kemper is fantastic, right? But like also some of the best punk records were made with a really shitty Marshall amp, like a
Tascam 424, and like that's it.
Exactly. You have one guitar and one amp. That's all you got.
Yeah, and I think too, not every piece of gear is meant for everybody.
Definitely.
I think about that too, where like a mastering, like the sickest mastering compressor that just looks beautiful and just a million knobs and is like 10 grand and it's just like the cream of the, that's not meant for me tracking bands. Like that's meant for like 10 guys doing all analog. Yeah, exactly. Right.
Yeah.
And so you also have to like have a grid of like, is this meant for me? Or like, am I the like I think about that, like, am I the target audience for this thing? And the master bus compressor or the master bus transformer from Neve, the Neve thing I just got, that was very specifically designed for me. And they talk about this, they designed it for you to have in like kind of a one analog, like, chain. If you don't want to have a bajillion things, you just want to like, they're like, we made this for you, the producer, that and I was like, wow, they're like talking about me. And then I kind of went down the rabbit hole and was like, yeah, this actually is the right piece of kit. The same with plugins, like, man, it's easy to spend $75 on the hot plugin and realize, that wasn't even designed for me. That was designed. Like I think
number
about
of plugins I've bought down the years, and I just never use them. Never seen the light of day.
Yeah. I mean, I've listened to you guys talk about stuff, on the podcast,
Yeah. I've probably got 10 plugins that I use regularly. I mean, I could probably get rid of everything else.
I've got my favorites and my go-tos, but there's something fun about like trying something out new, I just tried out the silencer plugin from Black Salt Audio, I think it was called. I was looking for a gate.
Does it make no noise?
It completely mutes everything. It was the best track I ever produced.
It turns your computer off and says go to bed. Yeah.
Nice.
That's all it does.
Yeah, I was looking for a different take on a gate, and I have the SSL plugin from Plugin Alliance that has a gate on it, and every other channel strip plugin has a gate on it, and I've tried those, and they do a really good job, but I needed something a little bit different for this particular job, and I was like, I keep seeing these ads for this silencer plugin, and they seem to, the ad is slick, does a good job. All right, I'll demo it. Let's try it out. And gosh darn it, it did a great job. I'm like, all right, fine, take my money. It did a really good job. I was pleasantly surprised.
That's
cool. It was one of those times where I'm like, I wasn't just buying a plugin because like it was discounted and the ads were slick.
But you had a need for it.
Definitely.
You had a need for it.
Definitely.
And it was like, this is great. Like this.
Yeah.
I hadn't even thought of it 24 hours before.
Yeah.
when I was playing around with this drum track where I needed to really control the spill and everything, and it did such a fantastic job.
Wow. Are you just trying to get a sponsorship for the podcast right now?
I am. Yeah. Black Salt Audio. You should
hashtag ad.
Drop us an email. Yeah, that'd be great.
Just tag them.
Anyways, so we are running out of time. So Jeremy, a couple of questions for you before we wrap up here. One, take a desert island plugin or piece of gear. I think I know what the answer is going to be, but if you had one that you would operate with for the rest of your life, what would be that piece of equipment or plugin or whatever?
Definitely. Fab Filter Pro Q4. Couldn't really work without it. Probably if there was a fire, the first thing I'd grab would be this red Stratocaster I have. I've decked it out with everything I want in a guitar, and it's kind of like my forever guitar. So that I'd probably grab that in the Juno. Everything else I could probably replace or whatever.
For
sure. Nate, how many times do Fab Filters come up as the top answer? Is it every time?
I think
it's got to be almost every time.
I think we're gonna
for good reason, man.
Yeah,
if I say
Fab
Filters enough, the algorithm will find it and they'll sponsor us.
I think at the end of season 2, we'll do a sort of like advertisement, like wrap-up video, and see if we can maybe get their attention.
You know, it's either that or Sound Toys.
Sound Toys, man. Yeah, honestly, that is the other one I was. It's funny you say that. I was thinking ahead of this podcast, like if they asked me what's my Desert Island plugin, is there anything I can say other than Pro Q4? And I literally just couldn't think of anything that was like remotely,
Pro Q4 and pretty much anything from Sound Toys is it.
Yeah. I mean, all the Fab Filter stuff is great, but Pro Q4 is ridiculously good.
Oh my goodness.
I just started using the Pro L2 limiter. From Fab Filter.
Yeah, well, we've discussed my views on this before.
We have, You like it now, though, right?
Yeah.
You're not on board?
What's the argument, or what's the...
So when I first got it, I thought it was awful. Genuinely thought it was awful. Thought it did some horrible things to the top end.
Not just like, this plugin isn't for me. It was awful.
It was awful.
That is,
and actually, it was.
That's some strong words, man.
Yeah. And it was another guest we had on who said, no. I mean, you are wrong. It is a brilliant limiter.
Wow.
It was Dan Millis.
Oh, Dan. It was Dan Millis.
It was Dan. Yeah. He's like, what's wrong with you, bro?
From one mastering guy to another.
Yeah, and it was exactly. He's like, well, I don't know how to say this, but you're wrong. I mean, you are fundamentally wrong. So I went away and I played with it for a while, and I think I was expecting to sort of slap it on and go, oh yeah, look at that, it's great. Yeah. And actually, it's a bit like all the Fab Filter stuff. You have to learn how to use it.
Yeah.
Even Pro Q4, it's not an EQ. Put it on there, turn some stuff. You have to know how to use it.
Correct. Yeah.
And I think I hadn't given it the time it deserved. And it is actually my default limiter now.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. There you go.
Hashtag testimonial.
Yeah.
Hashtag sponsored ad, Fab Filters, whenever you're ready.
Dan and I have talked about our shared... I think this is right. You can edit this out if I'm wrong, Dan. I think Dan agrees with me on this. True Peak is terrible. Like he does say that he turns off the True Peak. Once Dan told me that
algorithm.
like a year ago, I turned it off and I just like everything sounded like 5% better when I turned that little like Pro Q, because like it's on by default, so I turned it off.
Yeah.
And for whatever reason, the mix I was working on, it was kind of one of those like, what did I just do kind of things.
In Pro Q4?
In Pro in Pro L2.
Pro L2. The True limiter. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
True Peak limiter.
I don't even really know what it's doing. Some inter-sample.
Yeah.
I'm sure you know more than I do about what it's actually doing. But for whatever reason, Dan and I were like, you know what? That plugin sounds better with that thing off. So.
Oh, now I've got to try that.
Just A/B it next time you're using it. See if it sounds better.
Oh, I love stuff like that.
Yeah.
Nice. And so then the other question that we usually ask everybody, but again, I think I know the answer to this, is what's the DAW that you're primarily using?
Yeah, Pro Tools. I started out in Logic like 10 or 15 years ago, just because I had a Mac and, it's just kind of what you get. Right. Quickly kind of ran into my workflow limitations with Logic and was trying to kind of resisting the Pro Tools thing for a while because I just didn't want to do what everyone was doing, or whatever. then I got a trial of Pro Tools and just realized, oh, okay, well, that's why everyone, I get it now. Especially just for editing and stuff. Like, it's really unrivaled in terms of what you can do to audio in it. It's not my favorite, like, music creation tool. Like, I would say Ableton and maybe even Logic have a beat in that. But now with computers and stuff, like, you can have two open and you can have one routed into the other. And so I do that all the time. Just have a couple open and, but
how do you route one into the other? Is it Rewire isn't around anymore, right?
Yeah, there's Ableton Link. So Ableton has this really cool feature where you can choose a different input and output machine for Ableton. So you can have the input be from your interface, but the output be like a virtual thing. So I'll have the input of Ableton be my interface or whatever, and then the output, you can choose a Pro Tools aggregate virtual thing. I don't know. It's like some output that you can choose.
But they're both installed on the same machine.
Correct. And you could just go into Pro Tools, arm a track, set the input to that, and it just routes it right into Pro Tools.
Amazing.
Oh, that is really cool.
Yeah. So I do that all the time. Yeah.
So you may be our first Pro Tools user?
Yeah, might be the first Pro Tools.
No.
Warren,
now I get to ask
Tools.
the question.
I don't know. That's a good question. I don't know who.
So now I get to ask the
man.
question, what was your first Pro Tools version?
It would have been Pro Tools 10.
All right.
Or, because now it's like 2024, so they switched to the year.
Yeah,
I think I had either 9 or 10, and then they went up to 11, and then I think 12, and then they switched over to the years. So I went from like 10. I always try to stay back. I really don't like having the newest one, so I stay back. An iteration or two until it's like bugged out and stuff. So I think I had 10, and then I switched over to like the subscription. When they did that, and now I just do that kind of yearly thing.
So I had a Pro Tools SE back in the day. It came with my interface. It was the first DAW I ever had. So
Nice.
It wasn't like I want to do what other people are doing. I didn't even know.
You just had
I had Pro Tools SE. It didn't even have a mix window. It was just the track window. No mix window. I think you had a track limit of 8 tracks. It was terrible.
Wow.
And then I upgraded to Pro Tools 8, I think it was at the time, and then and now I've been using Studio One for several years, and I'm going to switch back because I miss Pro Tools. I miss it was just because it was my first DAW. I felt the most musical with that DAW.
Yeah.
And while I can use Studio One and it works better on PC than Pro Tools does. That's one reason why I switched, was because Pro Tools stopped being super compatible with PC. So,
interesting.
Yeah, I was having crashes all the time. It would just crash. And so especially around the time that Windows 10 was about to come out, and so now I want to go back, see if maybe they fixed some of those bugs. So
I think they have, because I have Pro Tools on my studio computer, which is a PC, and it's solid. I really haven't had any problems. I can't tell you. I can't say that I've had one error message or crash. Only once when I switched interfaces. While I had a project open, it freaked out. Didn't like that.
It's definitely gotten a lot more stable. Like Pro Tools has a reputation for a reason of just being pretty rough with like stability and stuff, but it's gotten better. Yeah.
All right, and then last question, Neil, go for it.
All right, so we know we've heard that band that was on Tooth and Nail, but what was your first band? And what was the band name?
That was my first band.
Really?
Wow, what a way to start.
Hey, wow.
What a way to kick it all off.
I started out playing in my church youth group, and then I played in like basically church for a long time, and then I went to college and met those guys and started my first band ever, which was that band that got signed. Yeah, the only band I've ever been in. I've played with lots of other bands, just like as a fill-in or whatever, but that's my first like I was on the contract kind of band, you know.
Step up to the plate and knock it out of the park.
Yeah.
Jeez, Jeremy. God.
What a way to start.
I got kind of lucky for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Nice work.
That's awesome, man. Well, we are officially out of time. I know that we all have a hard stop here at the top of the hour. So, Jeremy, I want to thank you for taking the time to be with us and hanging out today. This was a great conversation.
Loved it.
We really, really appreciate you, sharing your history and your knowledge with us. I think the listeners will really enjoy today's episode. If anyone wanted to get in touch with you, work with you, find out more, ask questions, whatever, how can they contact you?
You can text me. I can give you my number. You can text me directly. I've got email.
Let's not do that. Let's not do that.
That's okay. Maybe not. All right. I have an email address, jeremypaulsteckel@gmail.com. I can send that to you. Instagram, Jeremy_Steckel. Easy way to get a hold of me. Yeah.
Nice.
Awesome.
That's pretty.
All right.
Yeah.
Well,
I had a website for a while, but I didn't really use it a whole lot, and so most people reach out via Instagram now, which is really funny. Like basically, no one was using the website thing, and all of it was coming. So I was like, I'm just gonna experiment. So I'm in an experimentation phase right now. That's why I don't have an actual website, and it hasn't backfired yet. So we'll see.
The websites are basically a formality.
I think you'll be all right.
Yeah,
you'll be fine.
Right.
Hasn't hurt me yet. So
cool.
Yep.
Right on. Well, thank you, Jeremy, for your time. And this has been really wonderful.
Yeah, thank you, guys. This was a joy. It was really fun.
Hi. Thanks for listening to this episode of Sound Discussion. You can find out more about today's episode by checking the description area here in YouTube or by going to our website, sounddiscussionpodcast.com. While you're there, subscribe to our mailing list so you can be kept up to date on new episodes, updates from the team, and additional content only available to newsletter subscribers. And as always, please leave a comment, like, and subscribe here on YouTube and wherever you listen to podcasts. Thank you so much for taking the time today to sit in on our conversation, and we can't wait to have you back next month for another episode of Sound Discussion.
Like I was just like, wow, so bright-eyed, just like this is so cool,